They handed me the check, $198, 745. My family smiled. I picked it up, signed it, and made them regret it. The envelope was cream-colored. Heavy stock paper, embossed gold lettering. My sister Emma's wedding invitation weighed more than most greeting cards. I sat in my kitchen, morning light streaming through the window, and opened it slowly. The scent of expensive perfume wafted out. Emma Grace Montgomery and Christopher James Rothwell cordially invite you to witness their union asterisk. The venue was the Ashford estate. I'd seen it in magazines, 20,000 square foot mansion, marble staircases, crystal chandeliers imported from Austria. The kind of place where a glass of champagne costs $50. My hands trembled slightly as I read the details. June 15th, black tie mandatory, no +1s except approved family. There was a handwritten note at the bottom in Emma's looping script. Can't wait to celebrate with my big sister. This wouldn't be complete without you. Love always, M. I set the invitation on my counter. Stared at it for a long moment. 23 years of history sat between those embossed lines. 23 years of being the backup daughter. Let me take you back so you understand what I'm talking about. I was 9 when Emma was born. Mom came home from the hospital cradling her like she was made of spun glass. Dad followed behind, carrying enough baby supplies for triplets. I remember standing in the doorway of our living room, excited to meet my little sister. Mom looked at me and smiled. But it wasn't the warm smile I was used to. It was distracted, tired, already elsewhere. Vivian, honey, go play in your room, she said. We need to get Emma settled. I went upstairs. Nobody came to check on me for the rest of the day. That was the first moment I became invisible. It wasn't Emma's fault. She was a baby, helpless, innocent. But somewhere in my parents' minds, a switch flipped. Emma became the sun, I became the satellite orbiting at a distance. Every birthday, every school event, every achievement measured against her. When I made honor roll in middle school, Dad patted my shoulder absently. When Emma learned to tie her shoes at 4 years old, Mom threw a party. When I got accepted to design school, Mom said, "That's nice, honey." When Emma got cast in a community theater production at age 12, they rented a billboard. A literal billboard on Interstate 55. Congratulations, Emma Montgomery, future Broadway star. I remember driving past it on my way to my part-time job. The shame burned in my chest like acid. Not because Emma didn't deserve celebration, but because I couldn't remember the last time anyone celebrated me. I graduated college with honors and $38,000 in student loans. Mom and Dad couldn't help pay. They'd started Emma's college fund when she was born. Mine never materialized. "You're so independent, Vive," Mom said when I asked about it. "You'll figure it out." So I did. I worked 3 jobs, freelanced, went without meals. Built a graphic design business from my laptop in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew. By the time I was 28, I was making 6 figures. I'd paid off my loans, bought a modest house, had clients across the country. Emma went to a private liberal arts college. Graduated with a degree in art history and 0 job prospects. She moved back home. Mom and Dad supported her. "She's finding herself," they explained. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. When Emma turned 16, I bought her a laptop. A nice one, $1,500. She wanted to start a blog about fashion. I wrapped it myself, drove 2 hours to their house for her party. Emma opened it, squealed, hugged me briefly. Then Mom pulled me aside in the kitchen. "This is too much, Vive," she whispered. I blinked. What? Emma's going to think all gifts should be this expensive. Mom's tone was sharp. "You're setting unrealistic expectations." I wanted to do something nice for her. Well, next time, check with us first. I left the party early. Nobody noticed. That memory surfaced as I stared at the wedding invitation. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. You can't pour from an empty cup, Vivian. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. I'd been working on boundaries for 2 years. Saying no to last-minute favors, not answering calls at midnight, taking time for myself. But this was different. This was my sister's wedding. I picked up my phone and texted Emma. Got the invitation. Congratulations, looks beautiful. Her response came in seconds. OMG, yay, you're coming, right? I need you there. I hesitated. Of course, wouldn't miss it. Perfect, Mom said you'd help with some of the planning. We can do a sister's day. My stomach tightened. I hadn't agreed to help plan anything. But that was how my family operated. Assumptions, expectations, obligations that appeared out of nowhere. I typed back. My schedule's pretty packed, but I'll do what I can. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Okay, well, at least you'll be there for the big day. Love you. I set the phone down. Stared at the invitation again. Something about it felt wrong. But I couldn't name what. The next 3 months were a blur of texts, calls, and requests. Emma wanted my opinion on centerpieces. Mom needed me to weigh in on the menu. Dad called to ask if I could chip in for the photographer. How much? I asked carefully. Just 3,000. I closed my eyes. Dad, that's a lot. You're doing so well with your business, honey. Emma really wants this photographer. It would mean the world to her. The unspoken message was clear. If you don't help, you're selfish. I sent the money. Then came the dress shopping. Emma wanted me there for her final fitting. I drove 4 hours to the boutique Mom had chosen. It was one of those places where they serve champagne, and the dresses start at $10,000. Emma stood on a platform in a gown that looked like something from a fairy tale. Layers of silk and lace, hand-beaded bodice, cathedral train. She looked stunning. What do you think? She asked, spinning. You look beautiful, I said honestly. Mom dabbed at her eyes. My baby girl. The consultant smiled. This is the one. Emma nodded, definitely. Wonderful. The total comes to 48,000 plus alterations. I nearly choked on my champagne. $48,000. For one dress. Worn for one day. Mom pulled out a credit card without blinking. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My dress for the wedding had cost $300. I'd agonized over spending that much. In the mirror, my face looked tired. Older than 32. You don't have to compete, my therapist had said. I wasn't trying to compete. I was trying to understand why everything felt so unbalanced. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emma called me at 10 p.m. Vive, emergency. I sat up in bed. What's wrong? The venue coordinator says we need to confirm final headcount and menu choices by tomorrow. Can you come over and help me and Mom finalize everything? Emma, it's 10 o'clock. I know, but the deadline is noon tomorrow, and I'm freaking out. I rubbed my eyes. Can't you and Mom handle it? A silence. Then, quietly, I thought you wanted to be involved. The guilt hit like a punch. There it is, the weapon they've always used. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll be there in 40 minutes. I threw on jeans and drove to my parents' house. Emma and Mom were spread out in the living room with binders, fabric samples, and menu cards. Dad was watching television in the corner, oblivious. Thank God, Emma said when I walked in. Okay, so we need to pick between the filet mignon or the Chilean sea bass for the main course. We spent 3 hours debating napkin colors and seating arrangements. At 1 a.m., I finally left. Nobody thanked me. The night before the wedding, Emma hosted a rehearsal dinner at a waterfront restaurant. I arrived on time, wearing the cocktail dress I'd picked out. Navy blue, simple, elegant. Emma greeted me at the door in a white mini dress covered in sequins. "You look amazing," I said. She hugged me. "Thanks, you look nice." Nice. Not amazing, not beautiful. Nice. I pushed the thought away. The restaurant was beautiful. String lights hung over the patio. The water glittered under the moonlight. Fresh flowers covered every table. I found my seat. The place card read, Vivian Hayes, Table 8. Table 8 was in the back corner, near the kitchen doors. Emma's friends were at tables 1 through 4. Her college roommates, sorority sisters, high school clique. All of them at the front, close to the head table. I sat down alone. A distant cousin I barely knew joined me 10 minutes later. "Hey," he said, looking uncomfortable. "Hey." We didn't speak again for the rest of the night. Emma gave a speech thanking everyone for coming. She mentioned her parents, her fiancé's family, her bridesmaids, her childhood best friend. She didn't mention me. I clapped when everyone else clapped, drank my wine, and felt the invisible walls close in. The wedding day was perfect. Clear skies, golden sunlight, temperature in the low 70s. The Ashford estate looked like something out of a movie. White roses everywhere, a string quartet on the lawn, guests in designer clothes sipping cocktails. I wore my dress, a lilac gown I'd spent weeks choosing. I'd wanted to feel beautiful. But walking into that venue, surrounded by women in couture, I felt small. The ceremony was gorgeous. Emma cried, Christopher cried, Mom cried. I cried too. Not because I was happy, but because somewhere deep down, I mourned the relationship I'd never have with my sister. The reception was held in the estate's grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, tables draped in silk. I found my seat. Table 12. Not 8-12. Even farther back than the rehearsal dinner. I sat down next to an elderly couple I didn't recognize. They introduced themselves as friends of Christopher's grandparents. I smiled politely. The speeches began. Dad stood up, tears in his eyes, and talked about how proud he was of Emma. How she'd always been their little light. How she deserved every happiness in the world. Mom spoke next. She told a story about Emma's first dance recital. How she'd known even then that Emma was destined for greatness. Everyone laughed and applauded. Christopher's best man gave a funny speech about their college days. Then Emma stood up. "I just want to thank everyone who made this day possible," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. She thanked the vendors, the wedding planner, her bridesmaids, and of course, my parents, who gave me everything I could ever ask for. She raised her glass. Everyone cheered. I sat at table 12, invisible. Dinner was served. The filet mignon I'd helped choose. The Chilean sea bass I'd debated at 1 a.m. It tasted like ash in my mouth. I was halfway through my meal when a server approached. "Ms. Hayes." I looked up, "Yes. The event coordinator needs to see you. It's urgent." My stomach dropped. I followed her through the ballroom, weaving between tables, feeling eyes on me. She led me to a private room off the main hall. Inside, a woman in a sleek black suit stood holding a clipboard. "Vivian Hayes?" she asked crisply. "And yes. I'm Margaret Chen, the venue coordinator. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" She handed me a leather portfolio. Inside was an invoice. My eyes scanned the page. Ashford Estate Wedding Reception Invoice. Client Montgomery Rothwell Wedding. Catering 87 450 *. Venue rental 45,000 asterisk. Florals 23,800 asterisk. Entertainment 18,500 asterisk. Beverage service 16,200 asterisk. Additional services 7,795 asterisk. Total due 198,745 asterisk. My vision blurred. I don't understand, I said slowly. Margaret's expression was neutral. The bride indicated that you would be handling the final payment. There's been a mistake. I have it in writing. She flipped to another page. There was an email exchange. Emma's name at the top. My sister Vivian Hayes will be authorizing final payment. She's a guest but also handling logistics. Please provide her with the final invoice at the reception. My hands shook. I never agreed to this. Nevertheless, the balance is due tonight. The bride's family provided a $50,000 deposit, but the remainder must be paid before the event concludes. You need to talk to my parents, or Emma, I'm not. Ms. Hayes, I've already spoken with both. They directed me to you. The room tilted. Where are they? Your mother said you'd handle it. She seemed quite certain. I stumbled out of the room. Found Mom near the bar, laughing with a group of her friends. Mom, I said, interrupting. She turned, her smile fading. Vivian, not now. The venue coordinator just told me I'm supposed to pay for the wedding. Her expression didn't change. And that's when I knew. She'd known all along. Mom. She sighed. Vivian, we'll talk about this later. Later, I'm being asked to pay $200,000 right now. Don't make a scene, her voice was ice. Of a scene. You're embarrassing yourself and your sister. My father appeared beside her. What's going on? Dad, did you know about this? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Vive, we can discuss it after. After what? After I've paid for a wedding I didn't agree to pay for. You have the money, Mom said flatly. The words hung in the air like poison. You have the money. Not, we made a mistake. Not, we should have asked you. Just, you have the money. That's not the point, I whispered. Then what is the point? Mom snapped. Your sister is having the happiest day of her life and you're making it about you. Around us, guests were starting to notice. Emma appeared, her face tight. What's happening? Nothing, Mom said quickly. The venue bill, I said, my voice shaking. Did you tell them I'd pay for it? Emma's cheeks flushed. I thought you'd want to. You thought I'd want to pay $200,000 without being asked. You're doing so well, Vive, and we needed help. You needed help, so you ambushed me at your wedding. Don't be dramatic, Dad said. Dramatic? Emma's eyes filled with tears. You're ruining my wedding. I looked at her. At Mom. At Dad. At the guests pretending not to watch. And I realized. This had always been the plan. They'd invited me, included me just enough. Also, they could hand me a bill at the last possible moment. When I couldn't say no without becoming the villain. Margaret appeared at my elbow. Ms. Hayes, I need your decision. I looked down at the invoice in my hand. Total due, $198,745. My credit limit was $250,000. I'd worked 10 years to build that credit. Saved, budgeted, sacrificed. And now, my family wanted me to drain it for a party I hadn't even been honored at. I could say no. Walk out. Let them figure it out. But the looks on their faces, the expectation, the entitlement, told me what would happen. They'd blame me. Tell everyone I'd sabotaged Emma's wedding. Turn me into the villain of the family story forever. I thought of my grandmother. She'd passed away 5 years ago. The only person who'd ever really seen me. Her voice whispered in my memory. Kindness is strength, Vivian, but only until it becomes silence. I looked at Margaret. I'll pay it. Emma exhaled in relief. Mom smiled. Dad patted my shoulder. Good girl, he said. Good girl. Like I was a dog who'd finally learned a trick. I followed Margaret back to the private room. Signed the receipt. Watched her swipe my credit card. The machine beeped. Transaction approved. And just like that, I lost $200,000. I walked back into the ballroom. The party continued. Champagne flowed, music played, people danced. I went to table 12. Sat down and stared at my empty plate. Nobody came to check on me. I drove home at midnight. The roads were empty. My phone buzzed with a notification. Bank alert, transaction pending, $198,745.00. I pulled over, sat on the shoulder of the highway, and cried until I couldn't breathe. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls. None from Emma. None from my parents. All from friends who'd been at the wedding. And one from a number I didn't recognize. I listened to the voicemail. Ms. Hayes, this is Thomas Park from Ashford Estate. I'm calling regarding last night's payment. There's been a discrepancy in our records. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I called him immediately. Mr. Park, this is Vivian Hayes. Ms. Hayes, thank you for returning my call. I've been reviewing the Montgomery Rothwell event file, and I found some concerning irregularities. What kind of irregularities? The initial contract lists your parents as primary clients. However, 3 weeks ago, an addendum was submitted changing the billing authorization to your name. An addendum? Yes, signed by Emma Montgomery. It states that you, as the bride's sister and financial guarantor, would assume responsibility for the final balance. I never signed anything. I understand. That's why I'm calling. The signature on the addendum doesn't match the signature on the receipt you provided last night. My heart stopped. What are you saying? I'm saying someone forged your authorization, Ms. Hayes, and I think you should speak with an attorney. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer. Her name was Rachel Kim. I'd used her for business contracts over the years. She answered on the third ring. Vivian, what's wrong? I told her everything. The wedding, the bill, the ambush, the forged signature. She was quiet for a long moment. Forward me all documentation, she finally said. Invoices, emails, texts, bank statements, everything. What do I do? You fight back. Over the next week, Rachel built a case. She contacted the venue and obtained copies of all correspondence. She subpoenaed Emma's email account. She pulled text message records. What she found was damning. There were emails between Emma and my mother, dated 6 weeks before the wedding. Mom, we're $50,000 short. What do we do? Don't worry, Vivian will cover it. How do we get her to agree? We don't ask, we handle it at the reception. She won't say no in public. Another email from Emma to the venue. Please direct all final billing to my sister, Vivian Hayes. She's managing logistics as a gift to me. No mention of asking me. No mention of my consent. Just instructions. Rachel also found the forged addendum. Someone had scanned my signature from an old birthday card and pasted it onto the billing authorization form. It wasn't even a good forgery, but it had been enough to shift the financial burden onto me. This is fraud, Rachel said, her voice tight with anger. Clear cut, they conspired to defraud you. What are my options? We file a civil suit for unjust enrichment and fraud by misrepresentation. We demand restitution, legal fees, and damages. And if they refuse, then we go to court, and trust me, Vivian will win. I called my mother first. She answered cheerfully. Vivian, how are you, honey? I'm calling about the wedding. Her tone cooled. What about it? You lied to me. You and Emma planned to stick me with the bill. That's ridiculous. I have the emails, Mom. I have the forged signature. I know everything. A silence. Then you're overreacting. Overreacting. We're family. You help family. You committed fraud. Don't be dramatic. You can afford it. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Vivian? Her voice turned sharp. That you're selfish, that you can't do one thing for your sister. I want the money back. She laughed. Actually laughed. Good luck with that. I have a lawyer. The laughter stopped. You wouldn't. I already did. Dice hung up. Rachel filed the lawsuit 3 days later. The process server delivered the papers to my parents' house on a Tuesday morning. Emma called me within an hour. How could you? She screamed. How could I? You're suing your own family. You forged my signature and stole $200,000 from me. We didn't steal anything. You paid for my wedding. I was coerced. You're insane. Mom and Dad are devastated. They committed fraud, Emma. It's not fraud, it's family. Then you should have asked. She hung up. My phone exploded with messages. Cousins, aunts, uncles. All telling me I was a monster. A selfish, vindictive monster who couldn't let her sister be happy. So I blocked them all. The hearing was scheduled for 8 weeks later. In that time, my family launched a campaign against me. They told everyone I'd promised to pay for the wedding and then backed out. That I was jealous of Emma's happiness. That I'd always been difficult and resentful. I stayed silent. Let Rachel handle the legal side. And focused on rebuilding my life. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, a judge who looked tired. Rachel sat beside me, calm and composed. Across the aisle, my parents and Emma huddled with their attorney. A young guy in an ill-fitting suit who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. The judge called the case. Hayes v. Montgomery, civil suit for fraud and unjust enrichment. Rachel stood. Your Honor, this case is straightforward. The defendants conspired to fraudulently transfer a financial obligation onto my client without her knowledge or consent. We have documented evidence of their intent and actions. She presented the emails, the forged signature, the testimony from the venue coordinator, the timeline showing Emma and my parents planned the scheme weeks in advance. The defendant's attorney tried to argue. Your Honor, this is a family matter, a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Rachel's voice was steel. They forged her signature. They misrepresented her role to the vendor. They manipulated her in a public setting to coerce payment. This isn't a misunderstanding, it's calculated fraud. The judge reviewed the evidence. Looked at my parents. Looked at Emma. Did you forge your sister's signature on the billing authorization? Emma's face crumpled. I thought she'd be okay with it. That's not what I asked. Did you forge her signature? And yes. The courtroom was silent. The judge leaned back. This is one of the clearest cases of fraud I've seen. The defendants are ordered to repay the plaintiff the full amount of $198,745, plus legal fees and punitive damages totaling $50,000. Payment is due within 90 days. My mother gasped. Dad's face went red. Emma started crying. I sat still, feeling nothing. Outside the courthouse, my mother grabbed my arm. You've destroyed this family, she hissed. No, I said quietly, you did. We gave you everything. You gave me nothing, you never saw me, you used me. You were always so selfish. I pulled my arm free. I hope someday you realize what you lost. I walked away and didn't look back. My family never paid the full amount. They couldn't. The wedding had already drained their savings. The lawsuit forced them to sell their house. Emma and Christopher's marriage lasted 8 months before they divorced. The pressure, the debt, the public humiliation, it broke them. My parents declared bankruptcy. I should have felt victorious. But mostly, I felt tired. I used part of the settlement money to start a small legal aid fund for people who'd been financially exploited by family members. It's not much, but it helps. Rachel volunteers her time. We've assisted 17 people so far. Some win their cases, some don't. But they all get to tell their stories. And they all get to know they weren't wrong for fighting back. I think about Emma sometimes. About the little girl who wasn't responsible for our parents' favoritism. About the sister I could have had if things had been different. But I don't reach out. And she doesn't either. Some bridges burn beyond repair. And that's okay. I'm 33 now. I have a smaller house, a smaller circle, a smaller life. But it's mine. Every piece of it is mine. I set boundaries, I say no, I protect my peace. And when people ask why I don't talk to my family, I tell them the truth. They thought they'd bought my silence, but truth and receipts cost more than $200,000. Would you forgive your family if they tried to ruin you financially? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories like this. Because sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is refuse to be silent.